Thanks for joining us. I'm Zach Lashway. As journalists, it's part of our job to cover murders. These assignments are never easy, not for us, and especially not for the victims' loved ones. Sadly, not all murders are solved. Some go cold, and some are never picked up by media. Last year, I attended a Crime Stoppers meeting one night after work. I met with loved ones of victims of murders not solved. For many of these people, they say they feel as if their loved one's case is at the back of a filing cabinet. And for some, they've never had the opportunity to talk about their case until now. Currently, there are more than 300,000 cold cases across the country. Of those, 20,000 are here in Texas. In hopes of solving more of these cases, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton launched the Cold Case and Missing Persons Unit 3 years ago. Space to solve the unsolved, hoping to get answers for loved ones of victims of cold cases and missing persons cases. To assist law enforcement agencies across the state of Texas with cold case investigations, the Attorney General's office created Cold Case and Missing Persons Unit in March of 2021.
And I think that people in Texas deserve that justice.
In an exclusive interview, I sat down with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton to find out why he established the unit.
And I just started realizing there was no central location that really focused on it. And a lot of these local counties didn't have the resources, they didn't have the expertise, and I felt like there needed to be a statewide repository for expertise and for information, and then hopefully a prosecution team, investigation team that's all they did. They were really good at it.
And that evolution has taken place throughout the past 3 years. The unit has 3 full-time investigators working more than 30 of Texas's unsolved homicides and missing persons cases.
They're not simple cases, they're difficult cases that take time to resolve it. In my opinion, every one that you resolve brings justice and brings closure for a family that really is looking for that.
Just assumed y'all were staying.
Just as far as, hey.
Mindy Montford is senior counsel for the Cold Case and Missing Persons Unit.
Before this unit existed, a lot of these cases were sitting on a shelf and not getting any attention. Not because the agencies didn't want to work these cases, they just quite frankly didn't have the resources. These cases have been through, hundreds of investigators sometimes. One of our cases is from 1969, if you can imagine. So by the time it gets to us, it's been through a lot of people, and we're kind of the last stop. But I think success to a lot of these families is just that somebody is actually looking at this case with a lens in 2024 as opposed to 1989, because things have changed. Even testing that was done 3 years ago, you should pick that case back up and try to test it again, because that's how fast technology changes.
And it's this reality that got me thinking about cases at the back of filing cabinets, unsolved, cold, maybe never picked up by media. Many of these victims are people from marginalized communities. What is your message to people still waiting for answers?
That there's hope, that we're there to provide hope.
As you might imagine, the Cold Case and Missing Persons Unit at the AG's office receives hundreds of inquiries from loved ones of cases waiting for answers. While these investigators would love to assist everyone, it's impossible. The unit takes on cases when asked by law enforcement agencies who reach out to them for assistance. One Houston family lost 2 young men to guns in 2 separate shootings. Both cases are cold. First cousins Edmund Ford and Joseph Billy, born and died 3 years apart. How would you describe Joseph?
Funny. Always coming, what's up, y'all? Just lit up the room.
How would you describe Edmund?
A lovable person, loved his family.
Sharon Shepard remembering her nephews. Edmund was murdered inside his apartment on Woodfair Drive in November 2016. Police say there was a knock at the door. Edmund answered and was shot to death. A witness inside the apartment escaped through a bedroom window, only to be confronted by the suspect and another man at gunpoint in the courtyard of the complex. She survived. The men took off.
Well, Edmund, you know, he was my favorite cousin, and we were like peas in a pod.
From kids to adults, Andrea Jones was close with Edmund, even after he became a father.
Very hard, because I believe every child needs their father.
2.5 years later, life for Edmund's family would get worse. Not only was his case going cold, but his cousin, Joseph, was found dead in the middle of Hondo Street on June 28, 2019, also shot to death. Police do not have a description of the killer.
It was awful. It was an awful experience.
Kimberly Castleberry Billy is Joseph's older sister.
Joseph was hilarious. He made everybody laugh. He was a protector for his family.
Joseph, also a father, leaves behind 3 girls.
If you know something to say something, you just put yourself in my shoes. If your brother was brutally murdered in the middle of the street and no one has come to speak up, you would have an issue with that.
Pain from murder is unimaginable, and the hurt from murders not solved, even worse.
Why?
We need some type of answer.
I want to make sure that we get justice, not just for Emmett, but for Joseph and for my family.
This family isn't alone. June marked 27 years a 14-year-old girl was raped and murdered. Her body left in a vacated hospital on Houston's west side. Her mother is desperately searching for answers.
That was the last time I heard her voice.
Murdered in the night, a mystery illuminated by pain and questions. Nearly 10,000 days later, what happened to 14-year-old Erica Garcia?
She was raped. She was beaten. She was strangled with her own underclothes. She had a horrible death.
And her body was left here.
It was left in the very entrance of the hospital, the front of the hospital.
Alief General Hospital at the time was shuttered. The building along Bel Air Boulevard was boarded up.
They took that plywood off and entered through one of the doors of the emergency entry, I believe.
It's those details that haunt Margarita Garcia, the not knowing how her 7th grade girl, who just made the cheerleading squad at Sharpstown Middle School, was never to be heard from after June 6, 1997. You got a call from her that evening.
She called me at 11:45 that night, and I remember, I'll never forget it because it was storming that night really bad. And she told me that she was on her way home. And I told her, I asked her, I was like, do you want me to go pick you up? She said, no, Ma, I'm on my way home.
Do you remember how you ended that call?
I said, okay. I said, just be careful. Bye. And that was the last time I heard her voice.
Margarita says Erica had gone out to a teenage club that Friday night. From there, she says she was told Erica went to an apartment complex and then a club at the corner of Boone Road and Bel Air Boulevard. That call Erica made to her mother that night was made from a payphone in this area, feet away from that club and that abandoned hospital where her body would be found hours later. You could get 1 extra minute with her. What would you say to her?
To give me a sign, some type of sign who did it. Because I feel that it was more than one person. Just give me a sign.
Margarita and her sister Brenda Chavez, Erica's aunt, spend holidays, Mother's Days, and Erica's birthday year after year at her final resting place. Did you ever think this is where you'd be spending your holidays, at a cemetery?
No.
Do you feel closer to her when you're here?
I do.
Comforted?
This is where I have to come and visit her.
Erica would have turned 41 years old this year. Margarita, her mother, says she longs for the day she can visit her daughter's grave and plant flowers in peace, knowing the person responsible for her death will be held accountable. When we come back, a cold case from Thanksgiving 1986 has a son searching for his mother's killer. The year was 1986. A young mother brutally murdered inside her Galveston County home, found dead the day before Thanksgiving. Almost 4 decades later, Shelley Franklin's case is cold. Her son is hoping someone will come forward with information that could help solve the crime. San Leon, Texas, close-knit coastal community. The people here keep a close eye on the bay and one another.
4412, go ahead.
But it appears there are secrets in which someone knows something, but hasn't said anything. A murder mystery from Thanksgiving 1986.
It was personal.
It was personal. There was things on the scene that made it very obvious that probably who did this was there because they could be there.
Lieutenant Tommy Hansen is a cold case investigator with Galveston County Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Division.
Shelley Franklin.
The mother of 2 brutally murdered inside her home. Lieutenant Hansen reopened the cold case of Shelley Franklin in 2017.
I've worked hundreds of homicides in my 50-year career, and the brutality of this was pretty much off the charts. It was very, very brutal. Her head was completely stomped in many, many ways. It was apparent that it was purely physical. There wasn't a knife used or a gun used or anything like that. It was pretty much direct physical contact. Indications are there's a possibility that she may have been secured in some fashion or form during all of this, which would have even limited her ability to combat what was happening even more so.
Does evidence exist in this case?
We've got a lot of stuff that what we're doing now, and we're looking at going through reprocessing everything under the new, latest, greatest technology, and just pray and hope that we can come up with a lead on this.
That might be the missing piece
The
you
missing
are looking
link.
for.
Exactly. Yeah. You put this story out. You'll put it out, and somebody will say, damn, I thought that case got cleared. If you know all the players, maybe you can connect the dots. Well, I did hear something about this. Okay, well, tell me what you heard.
What will it mean to you to get this case solved?
Do you want to just walk up to the family and say, here's what happened, and here's who did it, or hey, we're filing charges tomorrow?
Started missing my mom. Here we are, 24 years later.
You've gone 38 years without answers.
That's correct.
What does that do to someone?
That's devastating. That's the hardest part. Is not knowing. It's tough. So, and sitting here brings back memories.
Ted Ludwig Jr. is Shelley Franklin's son. He was 10 at the time his mother was murdered. His younger sister was 6. Neither of the children were home at the time of the killing.
I had aunts, family members that took me in, so I was kind of surrounded by good folks. But as I got older, I started missing her. So it's tough.
Well, I'm glad they're doing this.
Me too.
Ted and his sister were split, raised by separate family members. As time passed, both children had families, and both families had voids.
I didn't celebrate Mother's Day for a while, and then I thought, well, she would want me to. So I do celebrate it.
And in doing so, hopes to someday get answers. Justice for his mother, a woman he was robbed of as a young boy.
I'm really hoping this story does it. Zach, I really do.
Payne, decades old, Ted is now older than what his mother was at the time she was murdered. Solvable examined the murder of Swimsuit Boy, the last known victim of Houston's Candyman killer.
Tortured, murdered, they were handcuffed and their feet were tied.
Young boys abducted, raped, tortured, and killed. Headlines in Houston from the early 70s.
Tortured, murdered, they were...
A dark period in time, curated by none other than the city's Candyman. Terror that ended on August 8, 1973, when accused serial killer Dean Corll was killed by one of his teen accomplices.
Mama? I killed Dean.
Elmer Wayne Henley, in handcuffs, uses a KPRC2 radio telephone to call his mom to tell her he shot and killed Coral.
I'm with the police, Mama.
Henley confessed to killing Coral during a party at Coral's house after Coral threatened him with a knife and pistol, trying to force him into sexual acts. Coral, with help from Henley and another teen, David Owen Brooks, lured at least 28 boys and young men between 1970 and 1973.
A Houston homicide detective says the torture murders were the work of a maniac.
KPRC2 reporter Jack Cato followed Henley and police to a boat shed in southwest Houston, where 17 of those victims were buried. Henley and Brooks then led investigators to burial sites in Jasper County and Galveston County. The grave of one victim remains unknown at this time. Brooks was convicted of one murder and sentenced to life in prison. He died in 2020 due to COVID-19 complications. Henley was convicted of 6 murders and sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms. He's up for parole in October 2025. I reached out to Texas Department of Criminal Justice requesting an interview with Henley. Initially, an interview was granted, but within an hour, it was denied because loved ones of victims protested the interview. As for Swimsuit Boy, the last of the lost boys to be identified,
there's always somebody that's still looking for these children. We need to find them.
According to Carol Schweitzer, a program manager with National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the 1970s were challenging times with a lack of reporting and record of missing children. Is this case solvable?
Yes, I think this case is solvable. Yes, I think the technology is out there. And if the technology isn't capable this today, it could be in a month or a year from now.
The remains of Swimsuit Boy have been exhumed on 2 occasions, once in 2014 and another in 2019. To date, there's been no positive ID. When Solvable returns, we look at the murders of 2 women, same name, both mothers in Houston. 2 women, same name, murdered days apart. The year was 2000. It was October in Houston. Mary Lou Morris was found dead inside a torched car on a rural road in an area north of Baytown. Days later, another Mary Morris was found dead inside a vehicle in northwest Houston. The day the nightmare began, October 12th, 2000.
My mom didn't make it to work that day.
Frantic, Marilyn Blaylock, Mary Lou Morris's daughter, started calling hospitals. No leads.
When I got to her house, I just remember when I pulled up, there was a cop car there.
Marilyn and her stepfather decided to drive Mary's commute to work, a straight shot west on I-10. Mary, a longtime loan analyst, worked at a bank off Katy Freeway in West Houston.
I'm not seeing her car on the side of the road.
More anxious, Marilyn received a phone call from her father. He heard authorities found a burned car near Crosby Lynchburg and I-10, not far from Mary's mother's home. Immediately, Marilyn and her stepfather drove to that area.
I wanted to drive because I wanted to get wherever this was as soon as possible.
Marilyn says her stepfather directed her through the darkness to a specific location at 2600 West Cedar Bayou Lynchburg Road, not Crosby Lynchburg, the location in which her father gave to her. Consumed by the black of night, Marilyn says the charred car could not be seen.
All I saw was just the cop car.
The Harris County Sheriff's deputy confirmed a burned car was there, but instructed Marilyn and her stepfather to return to their home.
It wasn't probably 15 minutes later that they came knocking on the door.
What did they say?
That's when they told us my mom's car was there where we had been and that her body was in the car. I just remember losing it. I just crying, bawling because I think I was in absolute shock.
Paralyzed by pain, Marilyn had few answers then and now. Have investigators told you why there has not been an arrest in your mom's case?
There's no evidence.
Days after her mother's murder, Marilyn was watching the news. The name Mary Morris caught her attention.
Like they got all the details wrong.
Puzzled by emotions, time was a blur as Marilyn said goodbye to her mother.
The one thing that was important to me when my mom was buried is that she be buried with her jewelry. The funeral home didn't want to put my mom in the coffin. They wanted her to stay in a body bag.
I know this is probably gruesome. It sounds horrible.
I was the only person that saw my mom in her coffin. And when they opened the coffin up, I didn't see her jewelry anywhere.
Marilyn called the medical examiner's office. More confusion, as she was told the jewelry would have been picked up with the body.
And I said, no, my mom's remains have already been picked up. I just need to figure out where her jewelry is and how I pick it up. And they were like, no, Mary Morris is still here.
Marilyn received her mother's jewelry, most of it singed and in a bag, except a heart pendant Marilyn had refurbished.
I wear it a lot.
A token of love from a person who cherished and nurtured life.
It's heartbreaking because she was a good woman. She was a good wife.
What is your message to her killer?
I want to know why. I also really do want to know how she died. I want to know that my mom didn't suffer.
If you could say one thing to your mom.
Gosh, I didn't think this was going to be this hard.
You're okay.
She was a good mom, and, she taught me to take care of your family, take care of your kids, work hard. The woman that she was made me the person that I am.
Mary Lou Morris was 48 years old when she was killed on October 12, 2000. 3 days later, 39-year-old Mary McGinnis Morris was shot and killed inside her car in Northwest Houston. Are the unsolved murders connected? Was this a hit gone bad? A life of laughs and a lot of love, captured by cameras decades ago. Who is Mary McGinnis Morris?
She was so many things to so many people. I think she was an incredible mom. She was a fantastic daughter and sister, a great friend, great wife.
Katie Morris reflects on her mother's life. At 39, Mary McGinnis Morris was attacked, shot, and killed inside her car on Houston's west side. Katie is now 39 years old and a mother herself.
So much reminds me of my mom, especially now that I have kids of my own.
At the time of the murder, Katie was 15.
I was a sophomore in high school, and it was fall, so things were busy.
A few years prior, the Morris family moved from West Virginia to Texas for Mary's job. A nurse practitioner, Mary accepted a job as medical director at a chemical company.
Houston just opened up a lot of doors.
It was a Sunday. Mary was headed into the office. Katie and her father were going to a movie.
We attended the movie, and we came home and she wasn't home. She should have been home already.
Katie says it was obvious something was not right. Her father reached out to Mary's friend, who she'd been with that day.
And she hadn't seen her since earlier in the day, but she did remember my mom calling her and telling her she had seen someone while she was running errands that creeped her out, that she felt was a friend or an acquaintance of this coworker that she had had issues with earlier in the week.
Shortly after that call, Mary called 911. The recording has never been released, but Katie says it captured her mother's final moments.
I did have the opportunity to listen to it, and the last memory that I have of my mom is her screaming.
Moments Katie cannot erase from her mind. Do you believe your father had anything to do with your mother's death?
No. I don't believe my dad had anything to do with it. I don't think their relationship was perfect, but I think they were both two people that were willing to work to make that relationship better. I just want peace for my dad.
What is your hope?
My hope is that both of these cases can be solved, that Marilyn and I can both get some peace, not just for ourselves as the daughters of these women, but for the rest of our families.
Do you believe Marilyn's mother, also Mary Morris, was killed by someone who thought they were killing your mother?
It definitely is a little suspicious to me that these two women were killed so close together with the same name.
The murders of Mary Morris remain unsolved. If you have any information that could help solve any of these cases, reach out to Crime Stoppers. And if you have a cold case you'd like us to investigate, email me at zlashway@kprc.com or solvable@kprc.com. I'm Zach Lashway. Thanks for watching.